Today we're playing Pokemon Quetzal, an enhanced version of Pokemon Emerald with a billion new options. It has Pokemon up to Generation 9 and all of these Pokemon can follow you. And not just one Pokemon walking behind you, nope, your entire squad can be by your side. There's multiple difficulties to choose from. If you're a casual player, you might want to go with easy. But if you're a real Pokemon veteran and a misogynist, you might want to pick the hardest difficulty. The game also has some custom cheats to make the game easier for yourself if that's something you want to do. You can also modify the shiny odds, and this option is what tipped me over in trying this game out. Because today we're going to beat Pokemon Quetzal with only shiny Pokemon. Oh, and did I mention that it also has multiplayer, but I don't have any friends, so yeah, I didn't try that out. Before we jump into it, let me know what the last shiny Pokemon you caught was. Was it something cool like Rayquaza, or did a Geodude explode in your face? If we could smash 9,999 likes, that would be amazing. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into Pokemon Quetzal. For this run, I decided to go with the hard difficulty because I didn't want to claw my own hair out. And then I got to pick my character. You can literally pick any protagonist you want, or at least a lot of them. But I decided to go with Ray from Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I had no idea that was his real name. After spawning into my house, I checked out all of the options and noticed that there were also some missions that you could complete, but I didn't find any of them throughout the entire game. Then I went to Professor Birch and decided to choose my starter, and was surprised that you can actually choose from every single region, even Generation 9. I had a very long and hard thought about who I would pick, and since I have two cats, I decided to go with Litten. Incineroar also has an amazing white and red shiny that I have never had in my life, so from that moment on, I started resetting. And I kid you not, I found 4 shiny Zigzagoons before my beautiful cat would finally shine. The starter also has a chance to have its hidden ability, which in Incineroar's case is Intimidate, but this little kitten disappointed me with its Blaze ability. I went to the professor's lab to name it Nomi and started walking around the region and saw that the Pokemon in the grass are not random encounters anymore. They just walk around in the overworld, which is so nice to look at. And if you want to encounter them, all you have to do is run into them. Even the shiny Pokemon will just appear in the overworld. You don't have to wait for the encounter itself. But before fighting May, I wanted a second shiny, and route number 2 had some really interesting Pokemon. I could have had a Shinx, a Growlithe, or even a Sneasel. But in the end, I got one of the most popular and cutest Pokemon in the world, Wooper. We all know here around the Zwiggo channel that Swampert is the top water ground type, but I will absolutely take this beautiful pink little guy. So with Jenko by my side, I went and challenged May. To my surprise, she had the 3 Kanto starters, so not just one Pokemon. So I'm very glad I already captured a second shiny. Nomi was doing a hard carry here, killing Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander with some embers and scratches. We skipped through all of the dialogue with Dad and his green-haired kid, and as I'm trying to head to the nearby forest, I get stopped by Michael Scott. And after giving me one of his best quotes ever,
"You cannot learn from books."
I was free to explore. In Petalburg Woods, I had the opportunity to have a shiny Scyther or a Heracross or just something cool, but sadly enough, I got a Carablast, something I'm not too happy about because I was never able to evolve this guy into Escavalier. There is probably a way to get an Escavalier, but I had no idea how to get it. So now we're stuck with Cacablast. With my 3 cuties, I headed up to Roxanne, but I got a reality check really quickly. Because I picked hard mode, she had an Aerodactyl on her team, and my little guys are not meant to take that thing out. So I quickly evolved Litten into Torracat, and after a couple more beatdowns from her big prehistoric bird, I was finally able to break her rocks. Her Alolan Geodude was no problem for Wooper's mud shots. I was able to hit 2 Fury attacks on Aerodactyl before going down with Cacablast, and then I swapped in my Torracat and used Lick because I had to paralyze this thing. After so many attempts, I finally got it on my first try, and from there on I hit 2 more sets of double kicks, went down, I could then swap in Wooper, hit 3 more water guns, take out Aerodactyl, and also mud-shot her last Pokemon Rockruff to win my very first gym badge. I also found out you can rematch every single trainer in this game if you just talk to them a second time. So if you need to do some extra XP or money grinding, you can do that as well. I saved the best video game character of all time, Pico, from another kidnapping and searched for my next shiny. I would have loved that Charmander over there, but instead I got Shrek, which I'm not complaining about because Shrek is love, Shrek is life. Am I right? So with everybody's favorite ogre by my side, I went to a big meeting with Mr. Stone, and he didn't give me any stones, he gave me the most useless thing in all of Pokemon, the Pokénav. We do our usual boat ride with Mr. Briny and head up to Mr. Steven Stone. But on my way there, I ran into a shiny red-eyed Aron. I wasn't even looking for a shiny because I thought 4 should be enough for the second gym, but Juno decided to praise me with his presence. Objectively, Aggron really isn't that good of a Pokemon, in playthroughs anyway, because it has so many weaknesses. But in terms of shiny, I do really enjoy looking at shiny Aggron because of its steel shiny body. Steven congratulated me on my shiny Aron because he has an Aggron of his own, and gave me all of the stuff I need so that I can head on over to the second gym. So while fighting the gym trainers, Wooper evolved into Quagsire, going from cute to absolutely the biggest derp on the planet, and then I had a weightlifting competition with Brawly. My Machop was the MVP of this battle, taking out Scraggy and his Lucario with low sweeps and revenges. Hawlucha, on the other hand, was a little bit annoying to deal with, as it took down my Quagsire because I don't really have a good move on my Quagsire yet, but I was able to chip it down with some Water Gun so that Torracat could finish it off with Fire Fang. So that's our second gym badge in the bag. Another boat ride later and we arrive in Slateport City, where Archie is once again trying to flood the entire world, and we're going to have to stop him. So me and the squad head to Route 10 and find a shiny Blitzel there. While I think Blitzel and Zebstrika have really cool designs and a zebra Pokemon is just epic in general, I think their shinies are very underwhelming. Like, they could have done so much with the stripes, but they just made it a little bit more bluish. And Zebstrika is also definitely not the best electric type out there, so I don't really know how useful they'll be in this run. But we'll have to wait and see. Let's go and take on May. My cat ate a burnt butterfly, Zebra shook the turtle, Jenko mudded a fried chicken, and my cat once again ate a burnt toad and kicked a fox to get May out of here. Zebra turned into a purple Zebstrika, and speaking of electric types, it's time to take on Watson. Carablast really didn't do a lot because it got taken out with a single Fire Fang. Zebra then zoomed on the stage with Flame Charge, boosting its speed every turn until the Luxio was down. But Mega Manectric would put an end to my Zebra the turn after, as my Flame Charge did barely anything. Luckily for us, I got the perfect counter for this Mega Manectric, Jenko the Quagsire. By hitting it with Mud Shots every single turn, it went down after 4 of them. But even with all of the speed lowerings, my big boy still wasn't faster. His Rotom Wash could then clean me up with a Hex, and as I brought in Machop and got paralyzed, he swapped out into a Mulga after hitting a couple of revenges. I bring in Aron, I try to take it down with Rock Slide, but he swaps back out into Rotom, who finishes off Aron with a single Water Pulse, so I bring in Machop again to take out Rotom with a Revenge. And we could also finally clean up Emolga with some Fiery Fangs. Watson was by far the hardest gym leader we had to face, up until now that is, and straight after, Machop evolved into Machoke. I hadn't noticed this before, but I really love the blue on his arms, and his blue eye flows really well with the green. In Fiery Path, I found my next shiny Pokemon, another fire type, but this one just isn't as useful as Incineroar is going to be. Trudon the Roly-Coly. While I do like that its body goes from black to blue, this all changed when I evolved it into Carkol, and its shiny just doesn't look as impressive anymore. In Meteor Falls, we do some more water versus ground shenanigans, and once everybody left, I went back to hunting for a new shiny, even though I just got one. I could have gotten a Bagon or a Clefairy here, which would have been really useful, but sadly enough, Tayton Liza's ace Pokemon showed up. That's right, I got a Lunatone with a blue eye. I mean, it's not the worst shiny ever, but the Pokemon itself really isn't that good. At least it'll be useful for Flannery. So let's name it Zunor and head over to Mount Chimney to challenge Maxie. Juno easily took care of his bat with 2 Rock Slides, but then he brought out Camerupt, and this early in the game he already Mega Evolved it. so my Aron got scorched by a single fire blast. The only team member that could stand up to this walking volcano is Jenko. I was able to lower its speed with mud shot and hit a water gun, but this wasn't enough, so 2 earth powers took me down too. I then swapped in Shrek 2 again, hit a couple of low sweeps. But because he healed up, my Shrek was not able to take him down, so a fire blast ultimately was my downfall again. I swapped in my cat, somehow this camera tanked a double kick from this range of HP. I then tanked an ancient power and countered back with another double kick, finally taking the big volcano out. Zebra then finished off his last Pokemon Mightyena and I kicked Maxie into the volcano. No more shinies before Flannery, just one more evolution, Aron into Laron, and with all of my rock and ground types, she should absolutely be no problem. So she starts out with her regular ace, Torkoal, and just sets up some stealth rocks while I take this thing down with 2 ancient powers from Troodon. Pignite comes in and I don't really have any super effective attacks and don't want to get hit with a fighting type move, so I swap in Jenko and hit a couple of mud shots while tanking a few brick breaks to win this matchup too. Is what I thought, but this Pignite lived on 1 HP and then I brought in Carkol to try and finish it off with Ancient Power, but she healed it up. I then bring it down into red HP again, but it's no use. A couple of brick breaks and my pile of coal goes down. I electrocute it out of the way with Zebra's Shockwave, but her Mega Houndoom makes quick work of me with a Dark Pulse and a Sludge Bomb. I did a little bit of chip damage with Shockwave, but had to bring in Shrek after to one-shot it with a Revenge after tanking a Fire Blast. Juno was the perfect counter for Fletch in there, so one more Rock Slide and Flannery is down. Normally I would immediately move over to Norman now, but I decided to make a quick stop in the desert to grab another Pokemon. There were a ton of cool Pokemon that I could have gotten here, like a Trapinch that would have evolved into a beautiful shiny Flygon, or a Sigilyph that is already an awesome Pokemon, but I ended up with the worst of the worst. A stupid cactus that's basically useless to me. I know Maractus gets a lot of hate, but I think it's pretty justified. Just take a look at this shiny, I just don't think the colors flow too well together. But maybe Makis can sting Norman to death. So let's go and try. And Norman seems to have turned into a flying type gym leader as he starts out with a Swellow, which is not too great for my Machoke lead. So I go into Juno because I know this Swellow is not going to have anything for a steel rock type. I mean, it did manage to get me down to about half HP with Heat Waves, but by dropping some rocks on its head, we easily went into the next Pokemon Staraptor, another flying type. I knew the close combat was coming my way, but I didn't have a good switching, so I just let Laron go down. Carkol could then finish it off with a single ancient power, but he brought out his ace after that, Mega Kangaskhan. So I switch into Shrek 2 and managed to tank 3 Earthquakes with 1 HP remaining, and then I killed the Kangaskhan with a Revenge, going into the last Pokemon, Obstagoon. And with just 1 HP, Machoke obviously went down, so I brought in Torracat, double kicked this thing, and with that my dad is defeated. 5th gym badge is acquired and we evolve our starter into its final form, Incineroar, and his sprite looks a little bit cursed in this game. Another evolution occurred, my Carkol evolved into Colossal. The shiny doesn't really get much better, but we can finally unlock this big hump of Cole's full potential. Since the next gym leader is Winona and I already have a ton of counters to her, I didn't really know what I needed. So I just looked around on the next route and found myself another cat-like Pokemon, Purloin. A dark type that's going to be really useful for Tate and Liza. Personally, I think Purloin's shiny doesn't really change a lot, but it is better than its regular form. But once it evolves into Liepard, it goes from purple to red, which is a big improvement. So after naming her Joe, I headed on over to the bridge next to the Weather Institute to take on May once more. She still leads with the same Beautifly, so that's an easy one-shot with Rock Slide from Laron. Combusken, despite having speed boost, is no match for Jenko's water guns. And despite being in the rain, Incineroar still makes quick work of Ivysaur with Fire Fangs and Darkest Lariats. Joe assures the War Turtle to death, just like the last 2 Pokemon, Munchlax and Eevee. But honestly, if all of these Pokemon were fully evolved, May would be a force to be reckoned with. But for now, let's look at some chameleons with the Devon Scope, head back to Fortree City, and check out Winona's flying Pokemon. I also told her that Norman's looked looking for the flying type gym leader spot, and that made her even more mad. But she leads off with the fire flying type Oricorio, so yeah, that's an easy one shot. Gliscor on the other hand was a lot scarier, but Lunatone managed to easily switch in because I knew a ground type move was coming and I had Levitate. I then hit a couple of psychics, also lowering its special defense, and after one hyper potion and 4 of those, the Scorpion Vampire Bat was down. Even though I had a perfect counter for Corviknight with my Incineroar, I wasn't able to take it out because I didn't do enough damage with Fire Fang and it kept on spamming Brave Bird. So I brought in my other fire type and incinerated it. Togekiss then finished me off with an extra sensory because Iron Heads got me down to 33 HP, and I then proceeded to take out Togekiss with an Iron Tail and an Iron Head. Her last Pokemon was a Mega Pidgeot. I thought I might be able to take it out with Lairon, but critical hit Rock Slide still left it with a little bit of HP. I then got Heat Waved and knew I had to swap out into my cat. With the priority fake out, I finished off Winona and proceeded to try and head over to Mount Pyre, but before I got there, I knew I needed another shiny. I found a lot of Dark and Psychic types on this route, and I was personally looking for a Malamar with Contrary, but I ended up getting the worst Pokemon I could have gotten on this entire route. A green shiny Schneck. That's right, I got an Ekans, and even though after evolving it into Arbok when it turns into a golden snake, it still didn't really justify how bad this thing really is. But this was definitely the best shiny I got in this entire run. It's Lilico City time where we have to battle May in front of the department store, and this is going to be our final showdown, so let's see if her fully evolved team can take me out. Well, just like always, Lairon deals with Beautifly, but this time she had a Focus Sash. I managed to hit a Bug Buzz, but honestly that didn't really matter. For her Mega Blaziken, I decided to go into Arbok. Not really a reason, just because I wanted to get the Intimidate off. And then bring in my Moon, she misses a high jump kick, and I can then just finish it off with Psychic. Ivysaur did hit a Giga Drain, but another Psychic, another kill. Troodon proceeded to take out Glaceon with 3 Ancient Powers, tanking a Water Pulse and a Shadow Ball in the process because my speed got drastically raised because of the Water Pulse, and I got an Ancient Power boost. I hit one more Ancient Power on War Turtle, but that was the end of the Coal Mountain. Joel finished off War Turtle with 2 more Assurances as Munchlax then sweeped me up. Incineroar then used Double Kick twice and May was no more. To be honest, I was expecting her to evolve her entire team, but barely anything changed since the last time I fought her. Little underwhelming. Then we beat up some pirates on top of a ghostly mountain, and on the same mountain we grab another shiny Mon. I was looking for a ghost type so that it could help me take down Tate and Liza, and my prayers got answered with arguably the best shiny Pokemon ever, Hisuian Zora. It already has a majestic blue shiny, but once I evolved it into Hisuian Zoroark, that blue turned into purple. Personally, I would have preferred that the blue would have stayed blue, but I get it because regular Zoroark also goes from blue to purple. And I had to name it Tanjiro because the new season of Demon Slayer is airing right now. Not an ad or anything, I just enjoy watching Demon Slayer. Now, I know he just pushed Maxi into a volcano, but he just ended up at the bottom of it and still seems to be alive, as he's trying to reawaken Groudon. But since he only had 3 Pokemon, Mightyena, Mega Camerupt, and Crobat, this was a very easy battle. Incineroar took down Mightyena after going for some bulk ups and eventually taking it out with Double Kick. With the combined power of Incineroar, Hisuian Zoroark, and Arbok, we managed to overpower Camerupt, and Lunatone stopped Crobat right in its tracks with Psychics. Now that the natural disaster Groudon has been unleashed on the world, it's time to go back to Lilico City and check how Team Aqua is doing with their natural disaster. We just missed their boat, so we have to head up to Moss Deep City to get the Dive HM. But on my way there, Lairon evolved into Aggron. So let's speed up a set of twins with Psychic powers. I started out with my 2 Dark types, Joe and Nomi, and doubled up on their Indeedee. With that, their first Pokemon went down, so Bronzong's now left with Alakazam. They Mega Evolve their Alakazam and miss a Focus Miss. I then take out Bronzong with Night Slash, and Alakazam tanks a Darkest Lariat somehow, and they bring in Gardevoir. I double up on the new Pokemon with Night Slash and Darkest Lariat, but Moonblast takes out Joel. They also heal up their Alakazam as I bring in my Aggron. I take out Alakazam with Darkest Lariat, Alakazam misses another Focus Blast, and Gardevoir narrowly finally survives an Iron Head. But that's no problem, because just one turn later, she goes down to another one, we get our 7th gym badge and head over to the Moss Deep Space Center where we evolve Shrek 2 into Machamp, the ultimate Shrek form. Now, for the battle with Steven against Maxie and Tabitha, I decided to go in with Colossal, Machamp, and Quagsire. Their leads are Mightyena and Torkoal, but Steven's Pokemon are a teeny tiny bit underleveled compared to theirs, so I started off by setting up Stealth Rocks to just damage their entire team once they come in. The next turn they proceed to take both me and Steven's Pokemon down. So I bring in Machamp and cross-shop Mightyena and manage to one-shot it, and Steven brings in his Aggron. I then just use Earthquakes to take down the next Pokemon Mega Camerupt and Torkoal, but also Steven's Aggron. Luckily his next Pokemon Skarmory isn't going to be affected by that. I then had to bring in Quagsire as my last Mon, and as I proceed to spam Waterfalls and Earthquakes on their Crobats and Mightyenas, I somehow managed to get on top by the end of it, shooing Team Magma out of the Space Center and allowing us to freely use Dive whenever we want to. After finding the underground cavern and heading through waves of Team Aqua Grunts, we reach the Pirate King. He's currently waking up this world-ending fish and we have to stop him. He had 4 Pokemon compared to Maxie's 3. First I set up 6 Bulk Ups on Mightyena with Incineroar. Then I get my HP back with Drain Punch. Then I one-shot Crobat with Fire Fang, kill Mega Sharpedo with Drain Punch, and the last Pokemon Muck was also a one-shot with Darkest Lariat. Despite winning, Archie still wakes up the big fish and they're rampaging in Sotupolis City. So we sail to the Cave of Origin, talk to Mr. Wallace, and head over to the Sky Pillar to wake up the ancient flying snake. He then shouts at everybody to stop fighting and the world is saved. Team Aqua and Magma apologize without going to jail. I still think that's kind of ridiculous, and I went back to Pacifilog Town to grab my next team member. I really wanted a proper good specially attacking water type, because Quagsire is a physical one. But instead of a proper good special attacking water type, I got Wailmer, the thickest boy of them all. And I'm not complaining about it, because I love Shiny Wailmer and Shiny Wailord. Their shinies are absolutely top tier. Pink looks so good on them, but they're just not the best Pokemons ever, are they? But since we have a new water type, let's head over to the water type gym leader, number Juan. He led off with Golisopod and I started out with Zebra. I used Thunderbolt to trigger its emergency exit, and so he brought in his Zebstrike to counter Gastrodon. Luckily I have Machas in the back, so I just swap that in, use 1 Giga Drain, and the slug is down and out. For my Milotic, I first set up a Sunny Day, then used 2 Petal Dances, but on the first one he used a potion because the big Schneck survived with like 5 HP. Then I got confused and swapped in my Quagsire, tanking an Ice Beam as I come in. I take down Milotic with an Earthquake and Blastoise comes in. But it's not just any Blastoise, nope, it's a Mega one. After hitting 2 Earthquakes, Quagsire is about to go down to a Dark Pulse. So I go into Machamp and hit a Cross Chop. And I don't know what it is with these Pokemon, but they all survive on a tiny slither of HP. So as I'm trying to hit another one, Jellicent comes in to negate the attack. I'm able to hit a single knockoff, but a Dazzling Gleam and Ice Beam totally throw Shrek 2 out of a swamp. Incineroar then finishes off the Jellicent with Darkest Lariat, and as he brings in Blastoise, I'm getting ready to hit another Drain Punch, but he uses another potion to heal up. So I sacrifice Quagsire to safely bring in Zebstrika and Thunderbolt, his last 2 Pokemon, and that is my last gym badge acquired. Before we capture our last shiny Pokemon and go to the Pokemon League, we have one more obstacle in Victory Road, and that's Wally. And he had quite an insane team, starting out with a Rose Raid, which I do one-shot with Fire Fang from Incineroar, but then Mega Gallade comes out, and with a close combat, Incineroar goes down, but at least his defenses are now crippled. So I can safely bring in Tanjiro, use 1 Shadow Ball to force out his Talonflame. In order to take down this Talonflame, I decide to sacrifice my Wailord by getting hit with 2 Brave Birds, and that recall damage is hurting because of my big HP stat. Then I can bring in Tanjiro again to finish it off with 1 last Shadow Ball, also hit 1 more Shadow Ball on his next Pokemon Azumarill before getting taken down by Playrough. Then Zebra can finish it off with 2 more Thunderbolts, but his Garchomp puts an end to me with a Crunch. I then bring in Shrek 2 to take out Garchomp with 2 cross chops, but because of an earthquake and his rough skin ability, my Machamp goes down in the same turn. So now it's 1 against 1, Quagsire versus his Magnezone. I click the waterfall button to pop the air balloon and then finish it off with Earthquake because it didn't have anything for me. And that's Wally defeated. Now let's get that final shiny Pokemon, shall we? There was one zone that I hadn't checked yet, and that was the Safari Zone. But from the moment that I walked in, I was just running through the grass, and all of a sudden on top of me spawns a shiny Zangoose. And while I love shiny Zangoose with the blue stripe replacing the regular red one, I highly doubt I'm using it on my team, even though I should have just given it a Toxicroak with Facade and then it would have become the best Pokemon ever. But my dumbass didn't realize that, and I went into the league with Incineroar, Aggron, Quagsire, Machamp, Hisuian Zoroark, and Colossal. So of course our first opponent is going to be Sydney, and his first Pokemon is Bisharp up against my Incineroar. Because Drain Punch is 4 times super effective, it goes down and Tyranitar comes in. With his Chople Berry, he manages to tank a Drain Punch, but misses his Stone Edge, so I can go for another one and take down this mighty beast. I should have swapped here, but he brought in Crocodile and went for Earthquake, taking down my Incineroar. I bring in Quagsire, 2 waterfalls later, Crocodile falls, but Mandibus's foul plays finish off our pink friend. I should have gone into a rock type to be honest, but instead I went into Shrek 2 and Dynamic Punched it while taking a Brave Bird so that the next Pokemon, Mega Absol, could punch me in the face with a close combat. With its defenses crippled, I bring in Aggron and Mega Evolve it, tanking a close combat very easily and winning this Mega battle with Heavy Slam. His last Pokemon is Alolan Muck, and after spamming a couple of Earthquakes while he spams full restores, we come out victorious and head over to Phoebe. It starts out with Mimikyu against Incineroar. I do get hit with a Swords Dance boosted Shadow Claw, but that's about it. I easily manage to take it out with 2 Darkest Lariats after that. Her Gengar then doesn't miss a Focus Blast, and Incineroar is no more. So I bring in my very own Ghost type, Tanjiro, and hit 2 Shadow Balls to take out Gengar because sadly enough I couldn't one-shot it because of a Focus Sash. Her Mega Sableye was a teeny tiny problem. I was able to hit a Shadow Ball before getting taken down, and then it was Mega versus Mega again. Luckily I came out on top once more with Heavy Slams, as she brings out her Dusclops, probably with Eviolite. And I would have taken it out if not for these pesky full restores that she keeps on using. I did manage to get it down into red HP again before bringing in Machamp and killing it with a knockoff. The last 2 Pokemon, Chandelure and Aegislash, went down to Shrek 2's knockoffs as well. Let's check out Glacia. I thought that I could easily sweep through her team with all of my fire, rock, and fighting types, but it was definitely harder than I had imagined. We started out with Colossal against her Alolan Ninetales, and I was just using Ancient Power to try and get my boosts and then sweep with Flamethrower, but that didn't really happen, so I just decided to use Flamethrower anyway. Take down this Alolan Ninetales, and I also set up some Stealth Rocks at the beginning of the fight, because her entire team is going to be weak to that. She swaps a Mamoswine to clean me up with Earthquake, and I bring in my Mamoswine counter, Shrek 2, hit a couple of Dynamic Punches while she uses full restores, and just like that, the big mammoth is out. With an Icicle Crash from Weavile, my Machamp is out. I bring in Incineroar, use Drain Punch, and Cloyster comes in. But it has Liquidation and is somehow faster than me, so yeah. Incineroar down 2. And somehow Tanjiro then finishes off the last 3 Pokemon, Cloyster, Frostlass, and Mega Glalie with just a couple of Shadow Balls. The next person up on the chopping block is popular rap artist Drake. We go head to head with Dragonite and Incineroar. As I'm using Bulk Ups, he decides to use Dragon Dances until we're both at +6. I then go for some Darkest Lariats and take down Dragonite with 2 of them. I tank a Shadow Ball from Dragapult and also take it down with the same move, but my Darkest Lariat is now disabled, which is really bad as we go into Dragalge. I just start spamming Drain Punch. Luckily I went for Draco Meteor, which meant that it wouldn't do as much damage anymore and my Drain Punch would always heal enough to the point that it couldn't kill me anymore. Eventually my Darkest Lariat came back and I took it down, but I don't have enough HP remaining to tank a Draco Meteor from High Dragon, so my reign of terror is finally over. Because of the special attack drop, my Machamp can easily tank another hit, counter back with a Dynamic Punch and bring out Salamence. Of course, this is a Mega Salamence and an Outrage is not going to be good for me. As Shrek 2 goes down, so that means it's once again Mega versus Mega. I tank 2 Outrages and an Earthquake as my Rock Slides take down Salamence. His last Pokemon is a Garchomp who finishes me off with Earthquake. I bring in Quagsire, hit 2 more Blizzards, and Drake's next album is going to have to wait because we have to take on Wallace now. He also has a Water type team just like Juan, and he starts out with a Politoed with Grizzle. So I start out with my Colossal and tank a Scald with my Focus Sash so I can safely set up Stealth Rocks. I then let my boy go down after hitting an Ancient Power and bring in my Quagsire, set up 3 Amnesias to max out my special defense, and then use Toxic and Earthquake to bring it down to like 1 HP once again before he swaps out into Ludicolo. I use a Toxic again and tank a Giga Drain because now I'm at +6, but I still take way too much damage to my liking. I use a couple of Protects, but eventually have to bring in Incineroar to use Flare Blitz and fire up the Ludicolo as I go down in the same turn. His next Pokemon is a Kingdra, so I swap in my Mega Aggron, get hit with a Hydro Pump but counter back with a Metal Burst to finish off this mighty Seahorse. He tries to bring in Politoed, but because of the Stealth Rocks, it immediately gets taken out, and his Mega Greninja then finishes me off with Water Shuriken, turning him into Ash Greninja. I bring in Shrek 2, tank a Water Shuriken ×5 and kill it with Dynamic Punch, but Dracovish sees the opportunity to take me out. I swap in Tanjiro because I thought I could outspeed it, so I tried to set up a nasty plot. This was not the best idea ever because it was faster and a Fishious Render 2 rendered me useless. So there was only one more thing to do. Bringing in Quagsire, using Toxic on his next Pokemon, Mega Swampert, stalling it out with Protects and Earthquakes. Eventually he brings out Dracovish again. I use more Toxics, more Earthquakes, more Protects, and eventually we come out on top, defeating Wallace and becoming king of Pokemon Quetzal's hard mode with only shiny Pokemon. Now it's review time. Pokemon Quetzal reminds me a lot of Pokemon Radical Red with all of its features and all of the Pokemon that are available. I personally haven't tried out the hardest mode, but I feel like if they can kind of replicate Radical Red's difficulty, this could be Emerald's Radical Red version. I also haven't tried out the multiplayer, which could be fun as well, but if you enjoy playing through enhanced versions of Emerald, this is definitely a go-to game. You can check it out in the description if you want to, but for now I'm going to thank my membership and Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. If you want to do so yourself, you can click the links in the description. It's always appreciated, but not needed. And as always, people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm Zwiggo, and I'll see you guys next time.